Today on Mother Mayhem.
Mayhem saved my night. I want you and everyone listening to know that and to feel it. My mom, she didn't win. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast for Daughters. I'm your host, Heather Gray, and this week I get to introduce you to Allison, who happened to have her coming to mayhem moment in the middle of a Taylor Swift Eras concert. And so, of course, I had to give her a Taylor Swift themed name. My immediate go-to, admittedly, for that was Betty, but while I like the song, it doesn't actually fit our letter writer. Admittedly, I have to say I'm not much of a Swiftie myself here, but I do love the song Long Live, and one lyric in particular, which I have been known to sing out loud a time or two, stood out for me in terms of today's letter writer. You can all thank me later for not singing you the lyric, but the lyric goes, "Bring on all the pretenders. I am not afraid." And I think today's letter writer needs a little bit of that bravado and strength, so we're gonna borrow it from Miss Taylor herself. After all, Allison is Taylor's middle name, and yes, admittedly, I totally had to look that one up. So here's Allison and her story, and I'll find you all on the other side. Dear Heather, I've thought about writing to you so many times. You have no idea what your show means to me and how much it has helped me. You talk about going to your favorite TV shows for comfort, and I have to tell you, I come to Mayhem for comfort. Thank you for everything you do for us daughters. You are saving lives, and I hope you know that. Oh, thank you, Allison. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. There's not a lot about this letter that will be easy to share with you, but this part I know you'll like. I decided to write in when I was in the middle of having a panic attack during Taylor Swift's Eras tour. You talk about glimmers and things that calm us, and I cannot begin to tell you what a night like that concert is like. I am not a Swiftie, but my goddaughter is, and taking her and experiencing her true and unbridled joy was one of the greatest nights of my life, honestly. I thought of you right away because I got it. I got why you share your glimmers and light with all of us. Because seeing that little girl's joy, swapping friendship bracelets and hugs with other girls and women who became fast friends was just magic. I danced with strangers. I sang along with my goddaughter, and I cried from the sheer joy of it all. Thank you, Allison, for bringing us to this moment. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's feeling that with you. I'm not really someone who experiences joy in any kind of way like that, but for a moment I was. My goddaughter had her arm wrapped around another little girl who she hadn't even known a few hours before, and they were singing and dancing at the top of their lungs. And I went to take a picture, and suddenly I saw it. A notification that my mom had called me. I swiped the notification away. I felt it land in my chest a little bit, but I brushed it aside. I took the picture and I went on with my night. The next time I lifted my phone, Heather, my mom had called 7 times, and I saw several text messages. Then it was like the walls started caving in. I couldn't hear the music. My vision felt like tunnel vision. I felt like I was just going to burst into tears and my chest wanted to explode out of itself. My mom knew where I was. She knew what I was doing. She knew how much I was looking forward to this night. She knew. She fucking knew. And then she blasted my phone. I knew I was being tested. Did I love her more than my goddaughter? Would I choose her? Is she the most important thing? All of that bullshit that I don't even have to say because I know the other daughters listening already get it and they all already know that feeling. Oh gosh, Allison, of course they do, but fuck, we're feeling this one with you. Somehow, I remembered what you have said about grounding techniques, things that connect to our five senses. I gripped my goddaughter's hand, who thankfully was blissfully unaware that her godmother was losing her shit, and focused on feeling her squeeze my hand. I decided to start counting how many different pink things I could see, and let me tell you, not hard to find at a Taylor Swift concert. Aren't we all so grateful for that, Allison? I could feel my phone buzzing. My mother, again. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. One of the only times I've ever been able to do that with my mom. And I thought about Mayhem and what you and the other daughters might say. And Heather, I believe you when you say you heard a whisper to start this podcast. Because when I closed my eyes and I thought about all of you, I heard all of you, loud and fucking clear. Don't give her this. Don't let her ruin this. You are surrounded by magic. Look for the magic. Look at that little girl whose world is all, I'm going to cry. Look at that little girl whose world is all lit up right now and focus on her and focus on that. Oh, gosh, Allison. Mayhem saved my night. I want you and everyone listening to know that and to feel it. My mom, she didn't win. We had an epic night, one for the ages for sure. But when I came back to reality, I had 17 phone calls from my mom, and I have no idea how many text messages. Her last one to me was, I could be dying or having a heart attack. Of course, she went there. For all you know, nice to see how much you care. I wish I could tell you my resolve was still there, that I said, fuck her, and decided not to acknowledge her, but I didn't. I called her and I listened to her tell me how awful I was, how she had just wanted to check in and see if we were having a good time, and that she just wanted a picture of what it was all like. She said she wanted to be included in something that she knew meant so much to me, and how I was selfish and thoughtless, and how she started to worry if something had happened to us, and how she even thought about calling the police or something. And I didn't fight back. I said nothing. I just said, yes, that was awful for you, and I could have picked up. Then she put me on speaker so my father could tell me how they both had such a sleepless night and how they deserved more respect. And I told him, too, that I was sorry for worrying them. I just bent over and I took it again, like I always do. And that's why I've been wanting to write to you, Heather, because I have listened to every one of your episodes, and still, in a scene like that, I bent over. I let myself become humiliated, and then I apologized for my own humiliation. You talk about self-abandoning, and I, for sure, know what that is. I all but leave my body. Allison, Mayhem has you. We're in this with you. I have heard you talking about setting boundaries. I've heard you encourage lower contact. I've heard you tell us to start with one small thing. And I know all about why this is hard for me, and I know what I am supposed to do. I could have ignored my mother just as I did and then let her know the next day that I was with my goddaughter. I could have called her out for blowing up my phone the way she did, and I could have set any one of a million boundaries, large or small. I think about it all the time. But then in the moments when she's acting out, being awful, manipulating me, or lying, I just freeze. I get so scared. I get scared of it getting worse. I think of that daughter who set a limit at her mom's birthday party and woke up to a smear campaign. I think of the women who have just lost family members due to their mom's manipulations, and I get so scared. Scared no one will believe me, scared that I'll be alone in the world, scared that it could get worse than it is right now, And then I tell myself it could get worse, that this isn't as bad as it could be. And then I end up convincing myself to just let it go, that I can set a boundary the next time or some other story like that. I am always waiting for the next time, but something has snapped inside of me, Heather. I almost let her ruin one of the best nights of my life. Almost. That means I have a chance here, right? To ensure that there isn't a next time. I get jealous of the other daughters who have figured out so much more of their shit than I have, who have saved their own lives and have started over, and I have no idea how I'm ever going to get to be that brave. What do we do with our fear, Heather? That's what I think we all struggle with. Fear of what will come with setting boundaries. How can us daughters either be less afraid or do something even though we are afraid? There has to be another way other than just acquiescing, rolling over, and playing dead. I have listened to every episode, and admittedly, I haven't taken the actions you've encouraged us all to take, but I really want to. I just need help with this part. Anytime my mom calls, texts, or anytime I'm in her company, I'm just frozen, clenched up, scared, meek, small. I can't move. Trauma brain has me, and wise mind feels so very far away. I really need your help. Thank you for taking such good care of all of us. We owe you a lot. Okay, Allison. This one got me. I felt you so deeply in this, in every word, to be and feel so lost in this incredible moment in time, to have likely been able to forget about anything and everything hard in your life, and then whomp, to suddenly just be brought back to earth with such a crushing reality. My heart aches for you on this one and what you must have really experienced in that moment. You're a really good writer. I felt it. It felt like I was there with you, and I think that's going to be true for every Mayhem daughter listening to our chat today. I'm so sorry that this happened, and I am really proud of you for having that moment of clarity and for listening to it. The idea that you've come to know this show so well that you were able to close your eyes, wonder what the other daughters might say, and then listen to them, well, that just speaks to the incredible community we're building together. What a thing. What a thing. And I'm so moved. Thank you, Allison, for sharing that part of your story so eloquently that I was really able to feel every single part of it. That is an honor for me, and I hold that. I feel all of the other parts of your letter too, Allison. So let's sit together and spend some time on this. Before we can go any further, I want you to hear me on this. I believe that you have done the absolute very best you can with the tools, the knowledge, the resources, and the energy that you have had at the time. I can hear shame and embarrassment in your letter. I hear how the show has kept you company, and because you've listened to every episode, you think you should have just absorbed everything that I've ever said into your being, and poof, you should suddenly be capable of doing all the things. I know you think that, and I understand why you think that. If I had a nickel for every single time I've ever said to myself, I'm a therapist for fuck's sake, how did I miss this? Or I'm a therapist, why don't I know this by now? Or I've hit myself up against the same brick wall so many times. What is it going to take for me to finally learn this lesson? I get it, Allison. I so get it. I get how you have these high expectations, and because you think you know better, you should suddenly be able to do better. But sometimes healing just doesn't work like that, even though we all really wish it would and could. I don't believe you've wasted your time listening to the podcast, and I don't think you're behind simply because you haven't taken big actions yet. I believe you've been building up your wise mind. Here's my story about you, Allison. I believe that a lot of what we talk about on this show has likely been new for you. Maybe you never thought of yourself as the daughter of an emotionally limited or narcissistic mom. Maybe you always internalized everything going on and decided that you were the problem, that something was wrong with you. Maybe you didn't know it was trauma or abuse you had gone through. Maybe you didn't know about trauma recovery. Maybe you did know, but you couldn't actually do anything about it because you had to pay the bills or you had these competing priorities. And maybe, Allison, you feel a little bit like Pandora's box. Doing anything differently would suddenly force you to open the box, and doing that might be scary because you fear that if it all came out, you never would be able to pick the pieces up again. Perhaps, you're low on support in the world. Perhaps you're largely alone doing the very best you can to simply keep your head above water. Maybe you're treading water and kicking your legs with all your might, but you know that if you stop, you'll just sink. You might be short on time, reserves, people reserves, financial reserves, energy reserves, or mental reserves. There are so many real and valid reasons for why people can know and see all of the hard and scary things about their lives and still be stuck in movement away from that place. Your trauma brain, well, it wired you for freeze and it wired you for fawn. It's more than likely that freezing and fawning has saved you and protected you from more abuse. It's likely that freezing and fawning has protected you, and maybe that's why it's so scary to give it up. But it's important that you remember something here, Allison. Everything that's been true for every other mayhem daughter around here has also been true for you. Their trauma brains kept them from being the way they wanted to be, and yours has too. You might think that by listening to the podcast, you can be all like, well, that's my trauma brain telling me that I know it's bullshit. Wise mind tells me that X, Y, or Z. You might have been able to get yourself that far. You think it's strength or bravery, or you're telling yourself a story that it's guts that have kept you from taking different actions. Not true, Allison. Those other women, the ones you've mentioned, they aren't stronger than you or braver than you or better than you. Their brains responded differently. So they had different resources, different sources of energy. Hell, they had access to different hormones. Those in fight or flight, Allison, they get a big old whopping dose of adrenaline and norepinephrine. I'm very proud of myself for saying that right the first time to their systems. They get mobilized into action with those kinds of hormones in them. They can come out swinging on those hormones. Those in fawn or freeze, well, you all get a big old dose of cortisol. That right there is the stress hormone. And what does that do? Oh, nothing except, put you in a down state, in a submissive state. And that gives you lower levels of adrenaline, less access to energy. All of this is controlled by your nervous systems. Some of you get pulled into that down, immobile state, while others of you get thrown into that activated state, that place that brings out fight or flight. You are getting scared, Allison, because this shit is scary. Full stop. Beginning, middle, end. That isn't you telling yourself stories and you're not making excuses. That is you acknowledging that this is scary because it is. If you have listened to this many episodes of the podcast, that means you trust me. And I need you to trust my lens on this because I am on the outside looking in. No one listens to a gazillion hours of this podcast. And honestly, lately, I've been going on for hours, literally, with some of these episodes. No one listens to all of that just to waste their time, just to say they did. They listen because they are open to the idea that the stories they've been telling themselves thus far just might be bullshit. They listen because they know the stories they've been telling themselves thus far are bullshit. And they are listening because they don't know what the fuck to do about it. That is the company you're in, Allison. You are right in line, equal to and worthy of the same support everyone who's ever listened in as well as everyone who's ever written in is. You trust me. So trust me when I say that. You might think I'm blowing smoke here, but I am also about to prove to you that I'm not. And here, well, Allison, we tell the truth. We speak the truth on this show, and here is what is true. You have absolutely zero control over what your mother is going to say or do at any moment in time. I know you feel like you kept things from getting worse by going along with your mom's demands, by putting your needs aside and avoiding conflict. But the truth is, that wasn't a strategy that stopped the storm. It was just luck. You can't control when your mom will suddenly decide to shift the blame onto you again, or when she'll create chaos out of thin air. Her mood can change in an instant, and suddenly, again, you're the target, responsible for everything in her world that's wrong. Fawning may have worked in the past, but there's no guarantee it's going to work next time. Your nervous system, well, it knows this, which is why it's on high alert. That anxiety you're feeling is a direct result of the unpredictability you face around your mom. It is exhausting, and none of it is your fault. Your body's trying to tell you that it's not safe to keep walking on eggshells because this pattern is beyond your control. Right now, your body, well, it's in a tight knot because it's afraid of what will happen if you continue fawning, and it's afraid of what will happen if you stop. So many daughters listening right now can relate to this exact feeling. Your trauma brain is telling you that everything will spiral out of control if you make any changes. But the truth is, things can still get worse if you don't change a thing. That's because your mom is the one in control of that. She's the one driving the car, and you're stuck in the passenger seat reacting to her. I want you to really think about that analogy I just laid out for you for a second. What it's like to be the passenger in a car with an unpredictable driver. That's exactly where your mom has you right now. You're not just reacting to her actions, but to the environment she's creating. And Allison, we have got to get you in the driver's seat of your own life. The fear is real, and I know that, but it's also holding you back from the freedom you deserve. You are not meant to constantly be adjusting yourself to someone else's whims. We have to start reclaiming the wheel, little by little, until you can feel the stability and confidence of being the one steering. And this is how I think we start. By acknowledging that fear without letting it control us. We begin by taking small, intentional steps to reclaim your power, steps that feel safer and allow you to build some trust with yourself. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 overnight. It's about finding those moments where you can set even the smallest boundary and still feel connected to your true self, even if it's hard. Then, with each step, you'll be able to prove to yourself that you can navigate the fear and that the fear doesn't have to paralyze you anymore. Now, our nervous systems, they have one job: to determine and ensure our safety. And our nervous system basically has three states. First, that dorsal state, which is that down, frozen state you sometimes find yourself stuck in. It's numb and it's flat. Then we have the sympathetic state where we're activated and trauma brain is on high alert, responding with fight or flight. And then lastly, we have that ventral state, which is where we want to get you. This is the state where connection and wise mind come into play. And I gotta admit, guys, I really don't love the names for those states. And when I first started learning about all of this, I actually started encouraging my clients to come up with their own names for each of these states that you'll all find yourselves in at some point. So it's like dorsal, sympathetic, or ventral, but you can name it whatever you want. For some people, down is like the basement, sympathetic is that fight or flight state. So that might be their activated state or their action phase. And then ventral is their place where they feel connected and wise mind. So they might say that they're in tune. I have a client who says she's at the beach when she's in the ventral state because that's where she feels like most herself. Anyway, that's a side note, rabbit hole. Sorry about that one. But the important thing is that when you get to that upper state, whether or not you call it the beach or whatever, that is where you're capable of making decisions, of connecting, of feeling grounded, and feeling safe enough to set boundaries. But here's the thing. We can't launch you from free state into perfectly executed and firm boundaries. That is an unrealistic expectation, and it's going to set you up to fail. Instead, I want you to picture an inchworm. It stretches out and then it pulls back and then it stretches again, all in these little deliberate movements. That's how I want to get you, Allison, into the driver's seat of your life in small, intentional micro movements. And I think I know how we can start by recognizing that fear isn't something we have to eliminate completely before we act. Instead, we can learn to carry it in manageable doses, taking small, deliberate steps to reclaim your power. Think about it for a second. You don't have to turn the entire car around in one dramatic moment. It's more like learning how to gently, steadily nudge the wheel so you're no longer careening down a road someone else is controlling. We begin with micro movements, small, intentional boundaries that don't require a massive confrontation. Maybe it's something as simple as not answering a text right away or changing the subject when your mom starts to manipulate the conversation. These are ways to signal to your nervous system that you're starting to create space for yourself. And with each small win, you're building trust in your ability to navigate this fear and step more into your power. I want you to think of this as a process similar to shifting gears. You don't go from park to full speed all at once. First, you ease out of that frozen down dorsal state, the one where your body feels stuck and fear feels so overwhelming. Then you learn to manage the activation of that sympathetic state, the fight, the flight, the fawn responses your trauma brain has become so used to. The goal isn't to flip some switch overnight, but to inch you toward that ventral state, that wise mind place where you can feel calm and connected and able to make decisions. I want to offer you a few other examples, if I could, on how to think about these little micro stretches. And if y'all could see me, I know I'm doing an audio podcast here, but I'm doing a little pinching movement with my fingers, stretching my thumb back and my index finger out and then back so that my thumb and my index finger keep meeting back and forth like that inchworm, right? So we're stretching out a little bit, maybe to the point where it's just a little uncomfortable, and then we're stretching back in so that we can take a beat, take a breath, take a moment before the next one. So I want to offer you that as an analogy, these little micro stretches. For example, Allison, if you're used to always saying yes to your mom's demands, your first small step could simply be pausing before responding, taking a breath and asking yourself, do I actually want to do this? Do I have the capacity for this? Even just the pause is a victory. It's an inchworm movement, stretching out and getting you out of automatic compliance with your mom. And if you're used to agreeing with her, even when something feels wrong, your first step might be voicing a different opinion. Something as simple as saying, I don't know that I agree with that, or I'd prefer to do it this way. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but each little stretch, you'll start to move closer to bigger, more defined boundaries. Now, any step, honestly, guys, there's no way to avoid it not being uncomfortable. All of it is going to be unsettling at first, but your trauma brain is used to playing by the rule of survival, not by the rule of boundaries. So slowly we have to start building that muscle, that setting boundaries muscle, one small step at a time. And you have to know, Allison, that it's okay if it feels slow or even frustrating at times. That inchworm, that metaphor, that pinching thing, it's important. Stretch out a little, try something new, then pull back to reflect and regroup. That's how we get you into the driver's seat. Not with perfection or anything even close to expecting perfection, but by committing to progress, one little brave step at a time. And Allison, as I think about everything we've been talking about here and everything I still have yet to share with you, I gotta be really clear with you. All of the suggestions and the strategies, that's exactly why I started Tuesday Group and why I'm building our online community, Mayhem Daughters. What really stands out to me from your letter is how alone you felt in managing all of this. It sounds like you have been dealing with your mom's overwhelming messages all on your own with no one to turn to for understanding or support. Even the next day, it doesn't seem like you had someone that you could call or text or spend time with who had your back, someone who just would automatically believe you and understand how difficult it is. And Allison, I gotta let you know here, you are not alone in this. From what we've shared here, I know you're not the only one navigating this kind of pain and confusion. I want to remind you and everyone listening that the link to join Tuesday Group is in the show notes. And Allison, we would love to have you. But if that doesn't feel like the right fit for you, perhaps our online community, perhaps Mayhem Daughters is the right spot for you. We're off social media, but we've created safe spaces for daughters to connect one on one or join group chats with other people who truly understand. And you guys, just imagine what it could be like for a second if you had someone from Mayhem Daughters to text before, during, or after any of these really difficult moments. To have someone on the other side who already believes you and understands what you're going through, that is why community is so powerful. And I encourage and invite all of you to head to the show notes and consider joining a group or signing up for our community. Mayhem, for sure, is a club that no one's ever going to ask to be a member of, but you all belong with us. And I know you didn't ask about this, Allison, but I want to take a moment and spend some time on another important dynamic in the conversation we're having today. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that for daughters like you who are in regular contact with your moms, you are all living with that low, moderate, or even high level of a buzzing anxiety. You're anxious about the next call you'll get, the next text, the next demand, the next crisis, the next comment, the next. It's important for you to understand and have compassion for yourself on this because that constant anxious hum of anxiety, regardless of intensity, is impacting your ability to center and ground yourself in real moments that you're being called to respond differently to. This is because that endless and ever present anxiety is an energy drain. So, what ends up happening is when you need the reserves to really confront a situation like invading a best night ever, you are already running on empty. You're running on a line of credit. You're trying to manage disrespect, abuse, or manipulation from an empty tank. What happened at that concert was completely unacceptable. And the panic you felt was completely understandable. However, I believe your experience was intensified because you were likely already running on empty when it happened. Now, I want to walk you through some strategies for managing that constant hum of anxiety that you and a lot of people listening might be experiencing. Now, you've heard me on the show before. I've covered grounding techniques and breathing exercises in previous episodes. So, for all of you, feel free to refer back to those conversations too as we continue. But for those of you who experience ongoing anxiety, it is crucial and critical to dedicate time to building your toolbox of grounding techniques and breathing exercises. The key to making these skills effective is regular practice, even when you're not triggered. By incorporating them into your regular everyday, you're going to find it easier to access them when your emotions are running high or when you're triggered. The more familiar you become with the tools that work for you during those calmer moments, the more prepared and the more confident you'll be to use them when you need them the most. You're also going to begin to figure out for yourselves which one of those techniques works best for you in different situations. That's going to allow you to respond more naturally and more effectively. That is how you start to create new automatic habits and healthier responses. So, I want to take a second here to add a few more strategies to your toolbox. Tools you can experiment with as you work to reduce that constant anxious hum in your system. So, Allison, let's you and I start for a second with some mental boundaries, which I know probably has you shaking in your shoes a little bit. Mental boundaries are something that I've mentioned a few times on the show before, but let's dive into them here a bit more now. This might be a really good spot for you to begin. When you are constantly scanning for the next threat, your mind stays in survival mode, keeping your body in this heightened state of alert. One way to manage this is by practicing what the psychobabblers call mental compartmentalization. Try saying that one 5 times fast. This means creating intentional mental boundaries around certain thoughts and emotions, especially the ones that are tied to your mom. So, for example, you might be saying to yourself, "That's my mom's stuff, not mine. I don't need to carry her energy with me today." It's like decluttering your mind, acknowledging the thoughts without attaching a narrative or an expectation to them, and without letting them take over. A helpful visualization is to imagine putting those thoughts or worries into a box that can close. It's like placing them on a shelf to deal with later, but not allowing them to dominate the present moment. Recently in group, I told a daughter that she could just put her mom on ice for a while. That's another visual where you can just put her off to the side and just row her back there until you're ready to deal with her mentally. This next strategy, I think I've talked about it before on the show. I guess I'm either reminding you or introducing you to this one. Doing a 15-minute check in with yourselves. For a lot of daughters of narcissistic or emotionally limited moms, anxiety builds up slowly for all of you throughout the day. it goes unnoticed sometimes because you get so used to it. And then it doesn't rear its ugly head for you until it's exploding in front of you in a panic attack or when it becomes suddenly overwhelming. And a simple but effective strategy that you can use is to set reminders on your phones to check in with yourselves a couple of times a day. Perhaps you're doing this when you wake up, at lunch, or at dinner, or before bed. And when you're doing these check ins with yourselves, you can ask yourselves, how am I feeling right now? What is my body telling me? Is there something triggering my anxiety? What can I do right now to feel safer or more in control? You don't have to fix everything in those 15 minutes, but it's an opportunity to pause, to acknowledge how you're feeling, and to reset. This technique helps you catch anxiety before it ends up growing into something that feels or becomes more unmanageable. It allows you to intervene with smaller actions that hopefully can help you restore your peace. And another helpful strategy is collecting anchors, things that emotionally ground you when your anxiety starts to rise. This could be a specific phrase, an image, or a memory that soothes or calms you. For example, you might say to yourself, I'm safe now. Or you might visualize a place where you feel calm and in control, like sitting by the ocean or sitting in a cozy, quiet room. The key is you want to choose something that resonates with you deeply, and then you use it consistently when you feel triggered or overwhelmed. The more you use it, the more your nervous system starts to associate that anchor with relaxation, and it helps you ground yourselves more easily. Many of my clients like to use physical objects, things that they hold or touch to soothe themselves. And for me, I have like one, literally, I do. I'm holding it as I record this. I have this sensory blanket that has all those little tags. They make them for infants. I totally stole my nephew's. But I run my fingers over it when I need to center myself. And it might seem small or dumb or stupid, but also it works. Anxiety and trauma are really interconnected. Anxiety is often going to be eased and relaxed when it is released from the body. Physical activity can be a really powerful tool for managing that constant buzzing energy you're feeling. You don't have to do a full workout or anything all that strenuous, but even small movements can release tension. So I'm really going to encourage you, Allison, and everyone listening to please consider incorporating small, regular movement breaks throughout your day. Some examples might be stretching your arms above your head and shaking them out, doing a few rounds of jumping jacks, or taking a quick walk around your home or your office. Engaging in something rhythmic like drumming or tapping or dancing to music that you find really empowering. The movements don't need to be long, they don't need to be intense. I have clients who find quick walks to be really helpful, but even any kind of movement that you do intentionally and deliberately for a few moments can help you reset your nervous system, can release that pent up energy, and can start to ease that anxious tension. I also want to mention in a conversation like this the power of creativity. Using art or any form of self expression, that is going to help you release emotions and energy. You can journal, you can doodle, you can cook. The act of creating shifts your focus and it can recalibrate your energy. Artistic expression provides a safe space that can process your anxiety and the emotional overload in a way that sometimes words can't, but also sometimes words shouldn't, because these feelings just need to be released. They need to get out Not every word, every expression, every thought or feeling needs to be fully processed. It just needs to be fully released from your bodies. So if you're feeling unclear about where to start, maybe you try free flow journaling. Let your pen just move across the page. And again, I am pen and paper loyal here, folks. I know a lot of you like the keyboard and you move fast, but I promise you there's just something about actually putting pen to paper, but just free flow, capture whatever comes to mind. Don't make sense of it. Don't even try to make sense of it. You don't even have to read it after, but just allow yourself to express the chaos that's in your mind. Get it out of your body, and that will start to feel cathartic when it's done feeling kind of strange and unfamiliar. And I want to share with you one of my guiding principles in my own life. What is right now won't always be. This mantra, well, it helps me remember that this too shall pass, that the intensity of the moment is not going to last forever. It's a reminder for me to be present, to savor the good moments rather than always pushing on to the next thing. It's about being in the present, even when the present is hard to be in. That's why I believe in and advocate for the daughters that I work with to engage in a little bit of future planning, having something on your calendar that you can look forward to. One of the reasons a lot of you start to feel so anxious all the time is because your futures, well, they feel unpredictable. And like your current reality with your moms is the story you tell yourselves is that's going to be your future reality too. With your mom's behavior, being so erratic and unpredictable, it's easy for you to feel like you don't have control over your future. I want to start to encourage all of you to start setting small but meaningful goals for yourself that are rooted in what you want. This can be something as simple as planning a weekend getaway, setting or starting a personal project or a career goal, scheduling some self care time. And again, there are wide varieties of definitions of self care time, but whatever actually feels like self care for you, not everyone's a mani petty girl. Don't force yourself to be a mani petty girl and call it self care. This is the key to make sure for you that your goals are within your control and it gives you something positive to look forward to. When anxiety starts to buzz inside you, having these goals or things to look forward to on the calendar, that's going to help focus you and it's going to remind you that you have power over your future. Now, listen, I promise I'm wrapping this thing up here, but probably already going on for another hour-long episode. And I don't want to overwhelm you with too much, but I do want you to remember just one thing, if you don't mind. Even on those toughest days, you've got a blank space to rewrite your story here. The panic, the overwhelm, well, it's all part of your journey and it doesn't define you. You have the power to rise above it. Just like Taylor sings, I found time can heal most anything, and you just might find who you're supposed to be. So, if you're feeling stuck in that I knew you were trouble phase of anxiety, know that there is a community here that's ready for it to support you through every high and every low. If you're looking for a space where you're seen and heard, the link to join Tuesday group is in the show notes, or maybe the Mayhem Daughters community is what you need. No social media pressure, just real connection with women who truly get it. And remember, this is a state of grace. This is a worthwhile fight. So take a deep breath, hold on tight, and know that healing is on the horizon. You belong with us. Yeah, I sure hope y'all saw what I just did there because that took me a white hot minute. All of you are in this community of women around the world who are in this with you. And I, for sure, most definitely am in it with you too. Bye for now. I do hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have a question you'd like me to consider for the show, please do email me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. You are always welcome to share your story or questions by recording yourself using the voice app on your phone. For best recording quality, please do record directly into your phone without using headphones or Bluetooth speakers. We're building an incredible community as well over on Instagram, and I'd love to see you over there too. You can find us at Daughters NPD. Lastly, if you love what you've been hearing here on Mayhem and have found the show helpful in your own trauma recovery, please do consider becoming a Mother Mayhem sponsor by purchasing simple scripts for saying hard things. It's a resource I created that provides the right words for the hard conversations, and it covers life, love, and work. You'll find a link for that in the show notes. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, please do share the show with her. Your reviews and social shares help spread the word, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing the show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks so much for your time today. As always, I'm in it with you. Bye for now.